Hey everyone. So there was one bug in particular this week that boggled my mind for a while, so I wanted to dig a bit deeper into the process of tracking down the issue and putting in a fix for it. The bug was that sometimes, very rarely, players would get stuck in walls by a single pixel. I was all but certain this had to do with grappling, since I was only able to repro it when turning around while grappling, but spoiler alert, that assumption was wrong. Interestingly enough, I first noticed the issue because of the random input script I wrote for the AI, so that simple script is already paying dividends. Alright, on to debugging. I started off as people often do, by writing some debug prints to see if I could narrow down where the issue was occurring. When my initial attempts didn't show where in the script the issue was happening, I wrote more and more print commands until my debug looked like the ramblings of a madman. I could tell where the issue occurred in the print logs, but still couldn't tell why the player was getting stuck inside walls, despite all my output. This hinted to the fact that maybe the issue didn't have to do with the values in my script. Now, a few years back, I had an issue with moving platforms that drove me so crazy I posted to the GameMaker forums about it. Someone there mentioned GameMaker has issues with collisions in certain cases when using floating point values for movement. Since that did end up being the problem for my moving platform issue, I thought this might be similar. Before I moved on to a real fix there, I tried a simple test of flooring all of my movement scripts. That had the side effect of making movement super terrible, but also didn't fix the collision issue, so I assumed that wasn't my problem here. At that point, I actually decided to give up and move on. Maybe I would live with this issue for a while since it was rare enough and I would figure out a fix later. I moved on to testing a separate collision case I thought would be a problem. What happens when multiple players collide in or around the same frame? I stacked my players up and had them fall, and much to my surprise, my script handled this case perfectly. However, I noticed that when I placed a character in a certain position and simply moved to the left, the issue with getting stuck in the wall reproed. What the actual Okay, so this meant the bug didn't have anything to do with my grapple script like I had initially thought. After digging into more scripts and furiously googling a ton of info about GameMaker, I finally found my smoking gun. But before I go into that, I need to explain a bit about how sprites work in games. In most 2D games, the player can face left or right when performing actions. We could make sprites for every action facing both left and right, but that's a lot of duplicated work, and if something changes with the sprite, you'd have to make the change in multiple sprites. To save on that work, sprites are generally created facing one direction and then flipped in script or code to face the other way. Okay, so what was my problem then? Turns out, the way I had been flipping the sprite in GameMaker was by changing image_x scale, which is a GameMaker variable used to scale sprites. If you provide a negative value, it will flip the sprite as mentioned before. What I didn't know was that this also flips the collision for a given sprite. What was happening was that when I was flipping the player, the collision also flipped and was getting caught inside the wall by a single pixel. When I finally figured that out, I ran a test. If I increased the player's collision rectangle to extend far to the right but not to the left, does it make the issue more likely to happen? Sure enough, that was true. As is often the case with these tough issues, writing the fix is often far easier than finding exactly where the problem is. So now that I knew where the problem was coming from, I changed the script so the flip was only done when drawing the sprite, leaving the collision intact. I hope you enjoyed hearing about this difficult bug I dealt with and how I solved it. I'm sure I'll have more videos like this as I continue developing the game. Thanks for watching.